Learning about Gemara, the second day Chalamoid. Today's daf is daf Tzadik Tes Amid Aleph, and we were asking a question about where the shliach does not actually carry out his mission to the letter. He adds to it. How do we view the addition? Do we say that he carried out the mission, but he just added something to it, or do we say that it turned out to be not even whatever he did, even the part that appears to be a part of the mission is all considered his. He's not working for Mishaleach, the sender is working for himself. We sort of didn't come to conclusion. However, Ikadamri, there's another version where we come to conclusion, but our question is also different. So we are about 12 lines from the top of the page, like Tesam Ikadamri is another version. That's not a question. He told him to sell for me 15 saw. Instead, you sold the entire car, you sold 30. Included in that is the 15 that I asked you. So the 15 that I asked you, you carried out, but you also add another 15 of your own. So you did the shlichus plus you did your own. And we brought the proof yesterday from Me'ila, but we thought we brought a proof from Me'ila. Okay. And then we said Labdavka over there is a proof because maybe the shliach expressly told him that that's the shlichus of the master, and I'm adding my own piece of meat. Anyway, the question is the all the way around. He told him Zil Zaban Lekoda, I want you to sell 30 saw for me, but you instead you did less than I asked. Less than I asked. How do we view that? Do we say the shlich? You say to the sender, the Tovloch, I did you a big favor. I'm carrying out your shlichus, but I did you a favor. How so? Because if you don't need, in other words, why are you selling land? Generally, people sell land because they're desperate for money. So I thought I'll sell a smaller parcel of land, and then you'll reassess. Maybe that's sufficient, and you don't even have to sell more. I'm doing you a favor. If you don't need any more money, then you can. If you don't need money, once you sold the 30, so you cannot change your mind. But if you sold 15, and then you realize you don't really need much more, then you don't have to worry about it. You're not going to sell the balance, the 30. Or maybe the syndicate said, you didn't do me any favors. I don't like to have too many sales. I'd rather have one sale. It's much easier to deal with one person and so on. Here, you can have too many stars. It's too big of a headache. So is it carrying out the shlichus when you diminish, when you reduce the mission or not? Said, come in here. Like dinner shalzov, you gave someone, a person, the Mishaleach gave the shlich a dinner of gold, which is the equivalent of 25 dinner of silver. Now 4 dinner of silver per seller, so that's roughly 6 slaim and a bit, and a dinner. So we're going to round numbers off. So bring me a shirt. So he gave him a shirt. In other words, I want you to get me a shirt for the value of 6 slaim approximately. But he brought him back a shirt for the value of 3 slaim. A shirt, but then uvisholish, and the remaining 3 shloim, he bought a talus, he bought a mantle, bought something else, and it turned out to be that this money belonged to Hegdish. So who did the me'ila? It says Shneim Malu. They both committed me'ila. The sender. Remember we said yesterday that me'ila, stealing from Hegdish, is if you weren't aware that it's Hegdish. It was a shegig. The sender wasn't aware of the money, and so was the shlich. The sender, because he ended up getting the shirt that he asked for, and the shliach, because he bought a talis that nobody asked him for, so on his own volition. Now, I'm going to tell me that the shliach, even though he reduced, because he asked him for a full dinner goal, which means he wanted 6 slime worth of a shirt, and he gave him only a 3 slime shirt. So if you can tell me that even though he reduced the shlichus, it's considered that he did the shlichus, and everything else he does is on his own volition. But what he did for the master is considered shlichus, even though it's less than the master wanted. Makes sense why the balabais is more. He asked it for a 6 shloim shirt, he got a 3 shloim shirt, but within 6 is 3, so therefore the balabais is considered steal of megish. You can tell me the shlich is not working for the shlich anymore the moment he reduced the number. So why is the shlich moil? Am I more? Why was the shlich more? Says that's not. You misunderstood the case. You think he bought. You're comparing it to the case where he asked him to sell 30 saw and he only sold 15. So you're saying he asked him to buy him a six seller shirt and he bought him a 3 seller shirt, right? So here it's exactly the same thing. That's not what happened there. There was a massive 50% discount sale, so he bought him that 6 seller shirt and he only paid 3 slime for it. That's why he carried out the shluchas, because he got exactly what he wanted. He bought him a 6 slime shirt for 3 slime. Therefore, he carried out the shlichus. But if he would have bought him a 3 slime shirt for three slime, then maybe he wouldn't have carried out the shlichus. The guy wanted a better quality shirt. So if he carried out the shlichus exactly what the shalech wanted a 6 slime shirt, and he got it for him, even though he only paid 3, then what's the shlei guilty of? Whereas a talis, you're right, he's not guilty for the shirt. He's guilty because he spent the other 3 slime, he spent on a talis. And that he did on his own volition. Therefore, the shliach also is considered a moil. So explain to me the sefer. If what we're talking about, he gave exactly the shirt that he wanted, just that he paid less. But tell me, how could Rabbi Yehuda argue? Rabbi Yehuda says, no, he did not carry out the shlichus, and the balabais is not considered stealing. And he uses the words because the balabais can say, I wanted a bigger shirt, and what you brought me was cotton, a small shirt, the ra, and it's bad. Now, so what do you mean it's bad? In other words, I asked for a 6 slime shirt, and you got me a 3. It sounds like you got me a 3 slime shirt. Not that you got me a 6 slime shirt for 3 slime. Then how can he call it bad? He asked for a 6 slime shirt, and that's exactly what he got. So it sounds like Rabbi Yehuda says a 6 slime shirt, you got 6, you can want a 3 slime shirt, and that's why you're not moil. So why would the Tanna Kama hold that he is moil, unless even though you reduced the money that he asked you to pay for it, and you got him a lower quality, it's still considered shlichus. So you want to know. Really, he got him a 6 slime shirt for 3 slime, and that's why the balabais is moil. So what's Rabbi Yehuda's problem? Why is Rabbi Yehuda saying that the balabais is not moil? You didn't carry out the shlichus, because the balabais has an argument. And the argument is as follows. He usually, when you buy things in larger quantity, you get even a bigger discount. So if you got 50% off on a 6 slime shirt for a 12 slime shirt, you might have gotten 60% off, or a 13 slime shirt you might have gotten for 60% off, and it will cost you 6 slime. So he said, you cheated me. If you were able to buy, I gave you 6 slime to buy me a shirt. If you were able to buy the shirt that I wanted for 3 slime, you should have spent the full 6 slime, and you would have gotten me not a 12 slime shirt, you would have gotten me a 13 slime shirt or a 14 slime shirt. It would have been a greater benefit to me. So therefore, Rabbi Yehuda argued, you didn't carry out my shlichus at all. You ruined me. You ruined, what do you mean? You ruined me with the money, because you were supposed to spend 6 slime and get me a shirt equivalent of 6 slime. And you can tell me what's the difference. The Amalei says, if you would have paid 6 slime, today, it would have been worth 12 slime or even more, because you would have gotten even a better discount. And therefore, I'm upset that you didn't carry out my shlichus at all. Taking I'll prove it to you. Now what? When it says ra, it doesn't mean you got me a cheap shirt. It means that you did not use my money wisely. Ra goes on the money, not on the shirt. And why is that? Because I'll show you. Because it says moide Rabbi Yehuda is moide that the kitnius when it comes to kitnius is different. In other words, things like kitnius, which you sell by the cup, let's say, as we'll see in the Gemara, then no matter how many cups you buy, there's no benefit. So therefore, over there, I cannot argue, oh, you got a 50% discount, you should have bought more, and you would have gotten even a bigger discount. It doesn't work that way. You pay by the cup. So if there's a discount, and now you're paying a half a pruta per cup, no matter how many cups you're getting, so the babos can't have a tiny. But by a shirt, Rabbi Yehuda argues, he can have a tiny, that if it's a much more expensive shirt, you gave it a greater discount. Why is kidney different? So the Gemara says, kidney is besela, the kidney is bepruta. That a kidney is but when you buy a seller's worth, all you're getting is a number of prutas worth. Whatever you'd get, one single pruta, you get that many prutas in a seller. You don't get any benefit by buying in larger quantity or in bulk. and why not? So the Gemara, so Shmameh knows that when he says he's talking about that you didn't use my money wisely, because if you got such a discount, you could have got me a bigger discount if you spent the entire money. Now that's why Yehuda says you're not carrying out mashlichus, and the Tanna Kama says you are. But if he would have bought him not a 6 slime shirt, but a 3 slime shirt, and the value was 3 slime, then you would not have carried out the shlichus. Maybe. Hey chidami. What are we talking about the kitties? They sell only by assessment. They don't sell individuals. And the other sell them. Surely, if you buy bulk, you get it cheaper. But we're talking about basa the kaili bikani. They sell it in a cup, and every cup is a pruta. No matter how many cups you buy, you're still paying by the pruta. The kind of pruta, there would have been no benefit whatsoever. So therefore, over there, Rabbi Yehuda agrees that he carried, even though he bought less than he wanted, he carried out his shlichus, and therefore whatever he did. Something more further, Toshma coming here. Arba Meyers Zuz says my mission. If the Kesuvos 400 Zuz, Mochel Zed Mon Lachri Yof Mon of Dele Shal and Bottle Shakul Michan Kain. Says my mission that if he says 400 Zuz, he sold 3 parcels of land for 100. She sold 3 parcels of land for 100, and the last parcel she sold for 101. And for 100, what we said before might be for 101. So the last deal is considered null and void. It's considered null and void. So what is in here? We're reading the Mishnah as if he said, sell me 1 parcel of land for 400, and instead she sold a bunch of small parcels for 100. So she did not carry out the shluchus, and yet the Mishnah says that the first 3 sales are a valid sale. In other words, if you reduce the amount that the person gave you, it's still considered a valid shluchus. I said, no. We're talking about the small parcels of land here. You didn't have a parcel of land that was equivalent to 400 zuz, and therefore you had no choice. You have to sell the land to different people. Because when you appointed me shliach, that's what your intention was, to sell each parcel separately. Small parcels of land. Okay, so says the Gemara. Says the Gemara, Pshita, that's for certain. If he clearly spells out, I want you to sell my land to 1 person, and not to 2. He's then if he decides to divide the land into 2 parts and sell to 2 different people, it's not, even if you're going to argue, if I told you to sell a 30 saw and you sold 15 saw, it's included. And even though you sold less than I asked you to, it's considered a valid sale. But if I clearly said, I don't want you to divide into 2 parcels and sell to 2 separate people, and you did, then it's not a sale. Because in other words, I don't want too many starters. I don't want to have too many buyers. What happened? He said, I want you to sell to 1 person, but didn't spell out clearly, but not to 2. What do you say then? One, not 2. If he didn't specify, or he didn't stipulate, I don't want you to sell 2 people, then he can sell to 2 people as well. Why? Because people generally don't really care. Most people don't care if you sell to 1 person. Once you sold, it's sold. It's gone. No longer mine. He said sell to 1 person. He's just talking. That's speak. It doesn't mean it's common speak. It doesn't mean anything. Because if he really cared, he would have told it, spelled it out. So the Gemara. He could even sell to 100 people. Nachman came to Surya, and Rav Huna's son, Rabba, went along. What do you think? I agree with you guys, not like Rav Huna, not like your father, Rabba. That one, if he didn't spell out not to 2, includes 2 as well. One even to 100. So they said to him, I said, what about the other case? What happened to the shliach? He told him sell it for a certain amount, and he sold less. What would you say then? Is the sale a valid sale? If the shliach made a mistake, he told him to sell at a price, and the guy sold it for a little bit less. That's different. What do you mean? Why should it be different? I told you to sell you the property for $100. You sold for $90. Why should it be different? Or $100 for $110? Why should it be different? Didn't you say ain't another kakais? When it comes to property, there's no cheating because eventually the price will get there or whatever it is. So he said to him, Hani mili, when is that said? If the owner makes a mistake, it doesn't matter. Because property fluctuates in value. But if the shliach made a mistake, the shliach cannot deviate. I sent you to improve my situation, not to harm me. A shliach has no right to deviate and harm. That's why the yesterday, if Almana sells $101 property for $100, the whole shliach falls off, even though it's just a minuscule amount. We know generally in the laws of Oino, up to a 1/6, the sale remains a 1/6. The sale remains, but you got to reimburse the money. And more than a 1/6, the sale gets unravels. But by an almana, she sold $100 property, $101 property, $100. It's only 1% deviation, and yet we say the whole deal unravels. Why? When it comes to shliach, you got to be exact. You have no right to cause any loss whatsoever. But the balabas, when it comes to karka, ain't another kakoi. It's not cheated. Says you want to know the tamer of the shiny b'shil about. How do you know this about bias? How do you know there's a difference with balabas? You say it's not considered. It's a deal, still a deal. But when it comes to shliach, it's no longer a deal. How do you know that? Could it not? And Balunel Matzi says, well, as in Truma, And also in Kedushin, we'll have the Sugi of Shlichus. If somebody says Shliach, say, so this is we have to say the Taroim, he says to him, go out and give Truma on my behalf. I'm busy, I'm overseas, whatever, give Truma on my behalf. Now, there's three different amounts. There's some of the very generous people give 1 to 40, the average person gives 1 to 50, and the stingy give 1 to 60. And the Balabas didn't bother telling him what ratio he should give. Toidim Kedas Balabayis, he gives Truma the way he understands the Balabas. If he thought the Balabas is generally a very generous, profligate person, he can give 1 out of 40. If he thought the Balabas is very stingy, he can give 1 out of 60, whatever he assesses. Mainly a day, if it has no clue, it has no idea what the Balabas does, and the smartest thing to do is do the average 1 out of 50. What about Piches Asara? What happened in the Machlekes Rashi and Taisus? What exactly Piches Masara is? Either he gave, instead of 1 out of 50, he gave 1 out of 40, or the Piches gave less 10, or Hoisiv Asara, or he added a 10, maybe 1 out of 60. Taisus exactly the opposite. But Truma is still a valid Truma. Why? Because he can always turn around to the Balbai and say, this is what I thought. You didn't give me instructions, so this is what I assumed. So therefore, the illegal buy is Tanya. So therefore, that's the maximum. The maximum is the spectrum is between 1 out of 40 all the way to 1 out of 60. That's it. What about the Balabais makes a mistake? And by mistake, he was so generous, he gave 1 out of 20. Do we say the Truma unravels? No. We say whatever he did, he did. If the Shliach would have done anything more than 1 out of 40, then 1 out of 39, there's no Truma. If you look at Balabais, Tamil clearly, Torah, if he gave Truma, and it turned out to be that I feel Echad Me'esim, 1 out of 20, too much of Truma, it's a valid Truma. So we see clearly there's a distinction between a Balabas and between what do you call it? A shliach. Here we're talking about the amount, 1 out of 40, 1 out of 50, 1 out of 60. We also talk about if he gives a better quality, it's gives a better quality fruit, or he gives a lower quality fruit. And there, if the shliach did it wrong, that's considered a mistake. 1 out of 40, 1 out of 50, 1 out of 60 is not a mistake, because they're all valid amounts, and you didn't tell me, so I make an assessment. But better quality fruits, give the best quality fruits of Truma, or the worst quality fruits and all that. If he gave the wrong kind of fruits, we say that the Truma is undone, is cancelled. Why? Or is annulled? Because that's considered a toss. Tanya we learned. Torah v'olad b'yodit. Sorry, Toshma coming here. Kesuvos Daf. So now we go back to our Mishnah, and you were talking about if a shliach makes the slightest error. It says in our Mishnah, if it was $100 or $400, Mochel Zebel money sold to one person for 100, and Mochel Zebel money another 100. Well, Achra Shalom Mana didn't have Mana Shal Achra, but Mana then she sold $101 property for 100. Shall Achra bottle, which are Kula Michan kind. The last ones get canceled, but all the other ones are all right. All the other ones are all right. Yeah. Now you're telling me before you cannot have more than 1 star, and if you can tell me that this is going to support them, that if he says you said that if he doesn't spell out I don't want more than 1 star, you can have as many stars as you want. So according to the opinion, which is Rav Huna, who says that you cannot have more than 1 star, even if he doesn't spell it out. If he just says echad, he says sell it to 1 person, and he doesn't say and not to more than 1. We mean he dafka wants 1 and doesn't want any more than 1. So how come over here the somebody, she took a $400 property and sold it to 4 people? Why is it considered a valid sale? My answer, this is what we mentioned before. Big tiny, they were small parcels of land, and therefore, from the beginning, that's exactly how it was intended to be sold. Mishnah. Okay, so we learned about the Almana. If she makes the slightest error, that deal falls apart. What about the Dayanim? They also can seize properties, and they assess it and they sell it. What happens? They make an error. So an ordinary person makes an error up to 6, nothing happens. An ordinary person, the sale is still a sale, but you have to reimburse the money. More than a 6, the sale gets canceled. What about by a bezin? We have a machlekes. If let's say the Dayanim assess the property that they seize and they're going to sell, less than 6 also doesn't matter by Dayanim, but the error was exactly a 6. Do we treat them like ordinary people that the sale is a sale, you just got to give back the extra money or no? Michran bot, the entire sale falls apart. So a bezin is different than an ordinary person who sells it. By a bezin, we don't tolerate an error once it's a 6. Rashbag says, Michran kaim, no, the sale exists because im kain, otherwise, ma koyach bezin yafer. How is the bezin more powerful than an ordinary person? An ordinary person, if he does a 6, the sale remains, and by Bezin you say that it gets canceled, it gets annulled. No, by Bezin also the sale remains a sale. Im kain ma koyach Bezin yof. And I guess by the Tanakama says the koyach Bezin yof is, what somebody trying to learn, that an ordinary shliach, you deviate the smallest amount, the whole thing gets canceled. Here, up to 6. Up to 6, 16.5%, whatever it is, the deal still remains intact. So that's where Makar Bezin Yafa comes in. And Rashbag says no, that even by a 6th, they should be more powerful than an ordinary person, and therefore the deal remains intact. Avalim also get it because if they went ahead and made this document where they announced it and they called in people for an auction and everything else, and that's the price they get. Even they sold a $100 field for 200. Or Shavim Masayim and the buyer that comes to complaining, hey, you cheated me. Or Shavim Masayim money, they took a $200 field, it's over 100. They made a public auction and that's what they got. Then Nichran Kaim, they did everything legitimately, and that's the market, the reflection of the market at that moment. So you both have a question, Shliach, come on. We have a question. What about a Shliach? The Shliach of a Bezin, is he treated like a Bezin or like an ordinary Shliach? We learned before about an ordinary Shliach, even the slightest deviation is already gets canceled like almana. The slightest deviation, $101 property for $100 gets canceled. Or is a shliach of bezin treated like the bezin itself, that up to 6 the deal is valid, and a 6th is the machleket tanakama shivim. Rabbi says, Omar Nachman shliach katayonim. Shliach have the same as the yonim. We have a level of tolerance. And Rashmul Abish Namar Rab Nachman Shmuel Abish is Rab Nachman ki almana. Treated like almana, the slightest deviation gets cancelled. And why does he compare the shliach to the Dayanin, different than an almana? Because the shliach is not collecting for his own benefit; he's doing it as a proxy for the bezin. So he's doing it on behalf of the bezin. He's afshek namel day. The shliach is not doing it for his own benefit, so he has the same status as a bezin, and that is that up to a 6, the deal is a valid deal. When it comes to the widow, she's doing it for her own benefits. The slightest deviation gets cancelled because you're harming the yisayim. Shmuel Babista says Rab Nachman Kalmana. Shmuel Babista is the name of Nachman. No, she's treated like an almana. In other words, the shliach is treated like an almana. The slightest deviation, it gets cancelled. Ma'almana yechida, because she's alone, and therefore we'll say it's an error of judgment. And af shliach yachid, a shliach is working on his own, and therefore we say, look, it's an error of judgment, and it gets cancelled. Afuki bezin the rabbim. When it comes to bezin, they are a few people, so therefore we're getting a good rate. I mean, there's a consensus there from a few people, so that must reflect the reality. The hilchos and the halacha is shliach ka'almana. The halacha is that the shliach is just like a widow. The slightest deviation, it gets cancelled. Says the Gemara, how is this any different than what we learned? If somebody says to the shliach, say go. The taroim, if you tell your shliach, go out there and give it truma. Toidim kedas balabais. He goes ahead and gives truma according to his opinion of the balabas. The main of your day, doesn't know the opinion of balabais. Toidim the baini does average. Echem mechamishim, 1 out of 50. Pichas asara, truma. You just told me that the shliach, if he deviates the slightest amount, it all falls apart. How come when it comes to truma, he deviated quite a bit? He should have done 1 out of 50, but instead he did 1 out of 40, 1 out of 60, and we say it's still a valid truma. Why is it a valid truma for shliach? It's considered like an almana. The slightest deviation, it should fall apart. Awesome answer over there. Kivan the ikar the Torah. There are a number of people that actually are stingy and give 1 out of 60. And the ikar the Torah and the number of people give 1 out of 40. Amalei, the shliach is within his right to say, you did not to specify what rate, what proportion you want to give. That means you trusted me that I will decide which proportion to give. And this is what I decided, that this is where you fit in. Over here to usu. Over here, it's actually a mistake. Over here, if you you sell the property for $1 less than its value, it's an error, and an error we cannot tolerate at all. You as a shliach, you shouldn't have made any mistake whatsoever. We'll stop here. We'll continue to